So Jack, so now we're going to talk about defense, right? Defense is, you know, it's a unified, uniform kind of thing in every sport. You know, so you and I have worked together for your basketball team. You know, what were some of the drills that you would do in practice and even do in your skills training to help with that piece of an athlete's game?
Yeah, the two things that stick out to me that where we can get better as a team with individual defense and team defense. The first one is the hardest thing in basketball, maybe all of basketball, but definitely in defense, is a closeout. Yeah. So what we want to work on is being able to sprint to an offensive player, take away a shot with active hands, but then still be able to react and move laterally to keep that defender in front. Yeah. So we'll work on in kind of a triangle setup. We call it triangle closeouts, but we'll work in a setup where we have to sprint. We have to sprint, hands active, be talking, break down, and then be able to, from that breakdown, take one hard step to push laterally this way. Yeah. All right, and then we'll get back to that next spot, and then it's same thing, break down, other way. Yeah. Back to the next spot, break down, other way. Yeah. All right, so we're just working on the real specific thing, I think, is how do we get from taking away a shot, running in this direction, to that hard load and push. You know, not a whole lot different from the side jabs we were working on. Yeah. How do we get out of that quickly?
Absolutely. So, you know, I think based on some of the strengths that we talked about, that drop split squat that we did, right, that's deceleration and re-accelerating. So that's why we always harp on strength training. Because if you don't have the ability to load anything, right, it's going to be tough for you to close someone out and be able to keep your weight in a direction where you'll be effective. Because if you want to close out and you're too far forward, like all you got to do is give that offensive player just, if you were a great shooter, you didn't need a lot of space. You needed just a half inch and someone to be a half second too slow, and you got your shot off. You know, so for a defender, right, you want to be able to close out, but load in a position where you're able to, you know, be effective left to right. Right. So what we do, because I know you and I have talked about it a lot when we work together, right? How do we open up the hips? How do we be able to change direction effectively? And I know you love the crossover slip, and you love, you know, teaching the hips how to open up. So what we do is we do that medicine ball hip turn. So there's a huge thing with shoulder separation. If you turn your hips and your shoulders go with you, right, you probably would love that from a defender. If you jabbed right and I did everything like this, easy shot for you. So we got to be able to keep the shoulders where we are, but keep the hips where, you know, in the direction you're trying to go to. So we do that medicine ball hip turn. So the only thing I'm going to have Jack do is hold this out. He's going to turn his hips, keep facing the camera, come back, quick, 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 quick. Because, right, we're separating the hips and the shoulders, so you can push, slide, shuffle, or crossover step. So just quick, quick, good, quick, quick, good, good, nice, beautiful, and done. And, you know, as you showed with your triangle closeout drill, that's very tiring, right? Closing out, shuffling, go back to the center. That takes a lot of tendon resiliency. You know, I'm out of breath doing these drills, so that's a great way, like jump roping, things like that. You know, that's a great way to build the capacity to do that for, you know, a whole basketball game. So why these low-level drills are super important. And then the next one we'll do is a shuffle. We do a shuffle fake throw. So what I want Jack to do, you know, imagine you're doing Jack's triangle closeout where you're here and you're shuffling. The biggest thing that I've seen, even when I played, you know, you and I played again together a bunch, you know, Jack would go hard one direction, but the dude wouldn't stop. Like, you wouldn't stop. You could change direction, you could pull up, you could pull back, and my weight would always be shifted in a direction where I couldn't get out of it, right? So if you look at Jack's closeout here, right, I got to load and be able to shift direction. So what I want Jack to do, take this medicine ball, shuffle, chop, and it's the same thing with that lateral lunge we did. You got to be able to load the hip, but feel that knee go over that big toe so you can get out of it. So Jack's going to do like 3 reps each shot. Shuffle, chop, shuffle, chop, shuffle, chop, shuffle, chop, shuffle, chop. Good, good. Do it one, just pause when you do 1 rep. So pause. So again, notice Jack's knee. So that's why Jack was a professional basketball player, high-level basketball. Innately, his knee does not do that. Because guess what? If he did that and I changed direction, right, all I got to do is go this way, and I already have him beat. So we like adding in that loaded med ball throw because it takes that knee and it teaches how to go in and load, which will mimic, you know, the basketball game will mimic playing defense.
Absolutely, yeah.
And you love that crossover step. Can you talk us through that crossover step?
Yeah, so I think, you know, we tend to think of defense all about sliding, but you're not going to use that very often. You're really going to use it on maybe the first 1 or 2 movements guarding someone with the basketball. Yeah. But everywhere else we are on the court defensively, which is most of the time defensively, we should be moving with sprints and crossover steps to get to spots as fast as we can.
Yeah.
So what I see a lot is kids will go from on the ball gets moved, and they'll shuffle to their next spot, which isn't the fastest way there. So I want to see them be able to cross over and get to that spot faster. How do we get there as quick as we can be?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love the crossover step too. And I have this debate with a lot of coaches, a lot of strength coaches, because it's always like, what do you do? Do you shuffle? Do you crossover step? Do you do a push lateral step? Right? You got to do everything because you never know.
Yeah, right.
So what we do with our athletes, and we've done it, when I worked with Jack does it with his workouts. We give them these controlled constraints, right? So we're going to start up here. And what I like to have my athletes do is, even if you close out, because I know a lot of coaches will teach, push them to a sideline, push them to the baseline. But sometimes you have a good offensive player where your hips have to open up.
Yes.
So to introduce that closeout, we'll do that closeout here, and we'll do that hip turn, and we'll go into a crossover step, and then we'll go to a shuffle back to the top. So if I'm here, I'm crossing over, coming here, closing out. And then same thing, we'll do a hip turn, and then crossover step and close out if you got a guy that has a good pull-up.
Yep.
Right, so if Jack demos that, first one he's gonna start there, hip turn, crossover step, and then shuffle, close out. So that's one of our drills, because if I was playing offense, right, Jack closes out, I may rip hard, and then I may try to pull back to shoot, right, he can close out to that degree. So we'll do that, the crossover step to a shuffle, crossover. Shuffle, good. Give me a big crossover step here. Then that crossover, hit, good. Then shuffle, good. And what Jack did again, start at the top, start right there. As Jack hip turned, notice that foot right there, right? Sometimes what happens is we want this foot to step long, Jack. But if you notice Jack, what he did is he was there, he did a negative step. He opened up, that foot came back as he pulled himself. That's that hamstring working, right? He pulled himself in that direction. So do that one more time, Jack. Opens up, good, and then he pulls. See, notice that foot, it's that negative step. He pulled himself, and then same thing with this foot, he pulled him, shuffle. So there's that one question of, do we step long, or do we do a negative step and pull? And a lot of athletes innately, I've done some research on like Javion Carter, Patrick Beverly, these guys, they do that hip turn, but they pull.
Yeah.
What do you feel when you do that?
No, I feel like anytime you're taking a step that gets you in a bad position, you're going to have to take another step to get in a good position. So I think that when you keep it in a box, smaller spots, I think you're loading correctly and you're eliminating extra steps.
Yeah, absolutely. And then that last one we'll do a crossover step into a shuffle, but instead of closing out high, we'll almost cut the guy off, right?
Okay.
We'll pretend as if we're trying to beat them to the spot, but then we're gonna close out and shuffle laterally. So we're gonna be here, hip turn, crossover, open up. Notice that foot opens up, allows the hip open up, and then you're gonna do that shuffle right to that cone.
I remember you talking about this with our players, was when if we're sliding and we gotta make that change happen, and this foot is open like this, and a lot of times I see this. So kind of the idea of like, let's get our foot angled and loaded behind what the next movement is.
And that's that hip turn, right? That's that quick hip turn, because when we look at pivoting, right, sometimes you may have to open up and pivot, but that can slow you down. So I like that crossover. If I'm here, right, I just hip turn, right? If I can pick my feet up, I can put it down and generate that power.
Okay.
So if Jack starts at the free throw line, just start up there, he's gonna hip turn, so face the camera. He's gonna hip turn all the way to that cone, one big hip turn, open up, and then shuffle. Good, because that's as if we mimic, if I have that ball and I rip, cross, and then I change the shuffle, now we have the shuffle that we talk about. So it's always good to put these controlled constraints to teach an athlete the positioning that their body should be in. So when they get to you in practice in the games, right, they have all these tools in their toolbox.
Yeah.
So I'm a big hip turn guy, I'm a big crossover step guy, but with the shuffle fake throw, I'm a big shuffle guy too, because we have to teach our athletes to do everything. But I think we really have to get our athletes to open up their hip and learn how to do somewhat of a negative step to pull, and that's why we're big on those hamstrings when we get in the weight room.
Right.
What additional thoughts do you have with defense?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like we said with the offense, with the defense, it comes down to doing a couple different movements, pretty high level, and I think if you can, have that correct strength and conditioning advice, like I was saying, I wish I had that when I was younger. You know, your kind of expertise, then all of a sudden it sort of becomes interrelated to all the movements you're doing. You can do a couple different load movements correctly, like you've been talking about.
And the big thing with defense, right? The coach can't want them more than the player. You can teach them all the tools, all the tricks. You can teach them everything. You can get them as strong as they possibly want. But if you don't want to play defense, if you don't innately, intrinsically have that motivation to keep that guy from scoring, keep the other team from scoring if your teammates need help, doesn't matter how athletic you are. You've coached a lot of athletes. I've coached a lot of very good athletes. If they don't want to play defense, you can do all the drills in the world. So that's the $1 million question. How do you put it within, you know, the athlete to want to stop someone on the offensive end?
Yeah, you got to make it fun somehow. And but I'll tack on what you said. I'll take the kid who has the wrong footwork and who just has a ton of heart and is just going to go win possessions. You know, just because they love to play D. That kid's going to get you probably more stops.
And we're probably thinking of the same guy in your team.
You
know, in the 2 sectional championships, the state appearance, right? There's one guy that sticks out who, wasn't the fastest, wasn't the most athletic, but he wanted to be the first one in the line.
He wanted. Gets a shout out.
No doubt. That's the thing. Like kids, you want to. You're going to have to want to do it. At the end of the day, take these drills, apply it to have the tools and have the skills. But realistically, you have to want to stop your opponent. Because even if you put up 90 points in a game, you got to prevent the team from scoring 92. That's at the end of the day. So there's got to be one play where you prevent that guy from scoring that extra 4 points so you can win that game 92-90. And that's what it's going to take.
So.
All right,
Thanks,
man.
Coach.
Appreciate the time.
Appreciate you having me,
great
man.
stuff,
That was
man.
fun.
Cool.